Welcome in to the Paul Kuharsky podcast, live from the home studio, part of 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Zen Sports and EDLEY'S. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com, here to talk Tennessee Titans. On the day, we heard from Chad Brinker, and we're introduced to Mike Borgonzi. Big day at the Titans headquarters. Lots to review about what we learned about the Tennessee Titans. Adam goes right to the heart of it. He didn't think Chad Brinker's a very good public speaker. It's not the best. The prepared statement at the beginning, shaky. Not everybody's cut out to be a public speaker. It's not his forte, and that tells you a little bit about why he didn't want cameras and audio probably in his first thing. But we did get questions answered. We did get information. Johnny says, arrow pointing back up again, boys. Johnny's falling for it. Don't fall for it. Wait until you see something in evidence, Johnny. Why do you want to jump back on board with the team that has consistently hired poorly and that's made 3 years worth of bad decisions? Wait. See something in evidence. Don't put an arrow anywhere. Just don't make judgments in a hurry. It's bad. But Richard Snyder says the metaphor of using the back staircase, I think, was more than a metaphor. So Brinker said Amy doesn't want a situation where, coach is heading up one staircase while the GM's going down another staircase, and she's dealt with both. One thing that would mean was that she's in the building, and she's in the building some. She wasn't in the building today, which, I could take as a statement about she's given this thing over to Chad Brinker, and she's not going to be in the building to deal with these football decisions. She's given them over. Sam says, I'm dealing with fanatics, Paul. I know that I'm dealing with fanatics, but this is my podcast, and I'm allowed to tell the fanatics to wait because their fanaticism has led them to great pain and anguish over the last 3 years. And so repeat behavior on giving Rand his hat to cook or in J-Rob we trust is why I led my thing today with not jumping to Mike Borgonzi's slogans today. Don't invest in the Borgonzi scheme. Don't let Borgo bake. Don't let's go with Borgo. See him do something. He sounded good, right? And I think he could be good. But Rand sounded good, and we thought Rand could be good. And so, wait. You can go be fanatics if you want, but you're tuning in here, and I'm giving you my opinion. Wait. Be patient. The organization's trying to be patient. You should try to be patient. Everybody doesn't have to be anointed with a nickname and a slogan and a crown. Let them fucking do something. When they do something, then give them a crown. People weren't putting a crown on Derrick Henry's head when he stunk for the first year and a half, when they didn't know how to use him and he didn't make a cut and go, when he pitter-pattered in the backfield. Then when he got good, people got excited. Use the Derrick Henry model. Use the Derrick Henry model. Who cares that she wasn't in the building, Merck says. I don't particularly care that she's not in the building. I do care that she doesn't talk, because she was basking in it when they were good. She was at the tailgate. She was high-fiving. She was having her picture taken. Titans don't like front runners. That was a Vrabel word, but I think that's fair for football teams. You don't learn, and Callahan has echoed this. You don't learn the true character of people when they're winning. You learn the true character of people when they're losing. Now, if you're going to say that about all the players in the locker room, well, you say it about the owner too. And so we're finding out about the true character of Amy Adams Strunk. She hides when things are bad, and she's made bad decisions, and she's owned poorly. But when she's owned well, she's out there. She's out there partying it up, having a big time. And so I asked that question today. Said, now that she's turned over everything when things are shit, if you win a Super Bowl, is she going to stay off the stage and not accept the trophy? She's not going to be the one commenting? She delegated that to Chad Brinker? Has she delegated that to Burt Nihill? No, she'll be right back at the front. And I think that's bullshit. But she owns the team and she could do what she wants. John Robinson had the best introductory press conference of the last three because Adam is a sucker for a guy crying because he happens to live locally. But John Robinson also had 3 years of very good work. And there were things to get excited about with John Robinson because John Robinson drafted 3 All-Pros in his first draft. So John Robinson very quickly deserved praise and faith. And of all the slogans in J-Rob We Trust, had some backbone to it because he drafted Jack Conklin and Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard, who could play. Robert Draper, not the most important question, but the one that wasn't asked. Will Borgonzi be more transparent, more press-friendly than Carthon was? I think without a doubt, that's expectation for that role. I was assured by Nihil and Brinker that they would be more visible and more transparent, and that they've been, they said to me and to others that they were empowered by Amy Adams Strunk to speak on behalf of the organization. If they're empowered to speak, I certainly think Chad, who is not great at it, would empower his GM to do it. And I can't imagine Brinker would be a hider by like Rand was. Sam says his mind and body have been rejuvenated by 1.1 and he's ready for more abuse. I could see that a little bit more. He's rejuvenated by the first pick of the first round. Well, to a degree, that's reasonable. Let's talk about a few things. I'll sprinkle in a few things from the press conference today while I'll sprinkle in your questions. Why don't you go ahead and retweet if you're on YouTube. Let people know. Give a thumbs up there. Subscribe to paulkuharsky.com, where there'll be layers upon layers of examination of these guys, of decisions they've made, decisions they will make, and all of that, with more from Mike Herndon, Blake Bedingfield down the road, maybe somebody else. But well worth your $7.50 a month. I'm going to adjust this light. Hopefully that shines a little less awkwardly into my one eye. Did today put the Brinker backstabber narrative to bed, or was that always ridiculous? I mean, we don't know what went on behind the scene. If you say, Chad, did you stab Rand in the back? He's not going to say, yes, I did. I mean, Chad didn't promote himself over Rand Carthon. Amy Adams Strunk and Burke Nihil did. So he can't have done that without power from people above him. Ivan, good to see you as well. State of the team. Mike Borgonzi. There's some talent on this roster, but we're a 3-win football team right now. So that's not good enough. And we're going to have to look everywhere to improve it, whether that's upgrading starters or upgrading depth. I didn't go back and look at exactly what Rand Carthon said, but he said something akin to, we're not far away, when he inherited a bad roster. We're not far away versus we're a 3-win football team. What did Rand inherit? A 7-win football team or a 6-win football team? I think Mike was much more candid about what he's inheriting and didn't try to paint a pretty picture. He could have come in, if this was Rand, Rand spun it as like, hey, we're pretty good here. And Borgonzi did not spin like, hey, there's a lot of good here. Ball didn't bounce our way kind of thing, which is a smart approach. Brinker on the firings. Yeah, we're all frustrated. And I know Amy is really frustrated. I mean, she doesn't like this. She doesn't. It's 3 years in a row a dignitary has been fired. How do you build a sustainable elite franchise when you're the constant changeover? She doesn't want that. I know she doesn't. Well, we're going to put it to the test now. But what happens if Brian Callahan is not a good coach with better talent and he doesn't grow? We're going to come back to that, right? And we're going to come back to the people that hired Brian Callahan. Now, I'm of the belief that Brian Callahan can be a good coach, can be better. I think he's going to break himself down very thoroughly this offseason. He's already got a much better special teams coordinator. Jason Alton is his contract's up. I don't think he's going to be back as the tight ends coach. But we're going to see some different things on the coaching staff. and we're going to see revised personnel. We're going to talk about their draft goals in terms of the numbers that they'd like. But patience, 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 they preach. You need something big to happen to get significantly better and make some kind of significant jump at some point. SR says, appreciative of the presser today. Thought you and the other reporters in the room asked the questions we all wanted to hear. Can't fathom Amy trying to answer them. I will say this. Borgonzi's press conference is, that's a standard welcoming a general manager press conference. The press corps kind of talked about it amongst ourselves. Out of 35 minutes with Chad Brinker that you didn't hear, but that you're hearing all the answers from, we talked, and I thought collectively we did a very thorough job of getting Brinker on all of the things that everybody wanted to know from Brinker. And so I think that was a commendable collective effort, and it didn't expect anything less. Jonathan asked, do I think Carthon was pushed on Amy by the league? I think to a degree, but she didn't have to do anything she didn't want to do. So. Odd that Callahan wasn't there. Vrabel was there for RAN info. Callahan was there. He was sitting in the front row. I think the same place that Vrabel sat for Carthon's intro. I don't think Vrabel was at the head of the table. And there's no reason that that the head coach would be at the head of the table for a general manager introduction. But Callahan was in a suit in the front row. Zach says her not showing up at the presser day is pathetic. I mean, on the one hand, you could say it's not supportive for the boss not to be there. On the other hand, you could say, well, this is good. We want a hands-off owner. And if she's truly giving this over to Brinker, then she's symbolically, removing herself from it. I think it's something different. I think she sometimes doesn't busy herself with football stuff. And if she had something she wanted to be doing in Waller, Texas, her home, or with her horses, or with another business or leisure activity, that's what she does. COVID broke J-Rob's momentum. It's amazing how other teams in the league survived through COVID and even thrived. I don't know. I don't understand. Lewis, I just get so tired of you, and I don't really understand what you are that I'm going to say goodbye. Ed, who is constant presence here and everywhere, and who I really appreciate, says, moving on from Callahan midway or end of next season seems like a hard sell based on the patience thing. I mean, if they do that, no matter how bad things are, it really would run against the tone of what Burke Nihill said upon the firing of Carthon, against what Brinker said upon the firing of Carthon, and against what we heard today. So John Shepard says, do I think Brinker was alluding to work ethic a bunch? Was that a slight to Rand? I think it's in there. I mean, I don't think Rand Carthon got fired purely based on work product, purely based on personnel. I don't think the personnel did enough to help them get better, going backwards by 3 wins and getting the first pick in the draft. But I also, and I've reported this, and I'm not shy in my believing people who have talked to me about, I think the all ball all the time thing is not Rand Carthon. Rand Carthon's a relationship guy. And I think the relationship thing is limited. And I think the grinding on ball is not limited. There's no limitation to grinding on ball and the respect that wins you amongst other people who grind on ball. And there's a significant limitation to what relationships do for you, particularly when, you can't have a relationship with everybody because not everybody's going to like you. And so I think it's a mistaken hire from the beginning. And again, from people I trust, I heard not flattering things about Rand Carthon when he arrived. Those things proved to be true from people who worked with him and worked with him throughout his term, who are gone, and worked with him throughout his term, who remain. And the powers that be aren't going to say so, but I think that certainly factored into why he's not here anymore. Empowered, Jordan Pace said, this is a good line, is a code for burdened. Talent requirements. I thought this was interesting from Brinker. Let me get that down. Some spots, maybe if you can't find the complete package, there are positions you can get away with, or where you actually need someone who is just a smart, tough, gritty football player. Right? And we saw Vrabel make do with or even exalt some smart, tough, gritty football players. But there are other positions, Brinker said, that you simply have to have the speed. You have to have the explosiveness. You have to have the size and the length to affect a game. I like hearing that. I think the Titans, for far too long across multiple regimes, haven't taken that seriously enough at receiver, for sure, at edge rusher, considering the resources they've put into edge rusher. The last several years at right tackle, I would argue at middle linebacker. I'm excited to hear that. Spencer asks, when should we expect changes to the scouting staff? I wouldn't expect any changes to the scouting staff or to personnel outside of maybe adding an assistant general manager until after scouting season's over. The time that things turn over in personnel departments is after, it's not the end of football season, it's the end of draft season. And so first week of May is when scouts get fired, or when scouts' contracts expire. Todd says, are we making too much of Amy Adams Strunk turning into a recluse, or is there something there? Huh? If I thought I was making too much of it, I wouldn't be making something of it. Do I get any sense they'll be patient with Callahan? Well, we just talked about this. I mean, you can't come in as Brinker and Borgonzi and preach patience and then not be patient with your coach. You'd immediately be contradicting themselves. Yeah, I'm done. Eddie asks, are we done with the questions on who's in charge? Are we still asking the same questions to get the same answers? I mean, your favorite radio guy was constantly confused and kept asking after the question had been answered and answered and answered again. He's not going to be an overlord, Brinker. People may disagree with the setup, but it's time. This is what I wrote, but it's time to put the conversations about it to rest. Borgonzi is running the draft meetings and the free agent strategy, and Brinker hired him to do so, but Brinker's his boss. He has the power to break ties, but he has no intention of being some sort of overlord. That's it. If we're ultimately looking to blame or to praise, well, Brinker's the one allowing or preventing things from happening. But Borgonzi will be setting everything in motion. It's not as neat and tidy as we may want, but that's it. That's it. Hey, Jeff, good to see you. Do I think Brinker just saw a guy underperforming and was getting frustrated? Ultimately, I don't think that Brinker had the power to fire Rand. Now, he may have told Amy what he thought of Rand, and Amy acted on it. I don't know. But I think a lot of people saw a guy who was underperforming and were frustrated by it. Do I think that trading Jeff could be on the table? Feels like the time with a deep defensive tackle draft and his locker room presence and maturity. I think the Titans need to get to figure out Jeff and be honest about Jeff with themselves about the leadership thing. And maybe Mike is the guy to figure that out. I don't know if Chad has a sense of it. I am more optimistic that they will have a sense of his playing limitations because I think Rand was in love with them. I do. And I asked, I don't have this answer right in my at my fingertips, but I asked Borgonzi if he felt like his role was to be friends with the guys or if it was a business relationship, because he talked about the number one um, obligation of everybody in the building is to serve the players, which is interesting. He wants to serve the players, he said, whereas Rand talked about serving the coach. And serving the players seems like an admirable goal. I could try to find this quote real quick. I asked him about in service to the players, how much do you want to be friends with the players versus making it clear that it's kind of a business relationship. But here's what he said. It's an open door policy for me. As a leader, you're a problem solver. So if there's issues with the players, I want them to always feel comfortable coming into my office and talking with me. Our job is to maximize their ability, whether that's through coaching, strength and conditioning, sports science. Everything that we do is to enhance our players. You have to hold them accountable to that too. And I think the biggest part when I talk about bringing in people with character, you really don't have to push in as much. They're self-accountable. They do it themselves. So that's why I think it's important we go through this process and we acquire players that we're bringing in the right type of players that have that mindset. So that sounds, he didn't directly answer the friends thing, but I do like the tone there. Sam asks, if Chad turns out to be good and Borgonzi works out, could I see a scenario in a couple of years where Amy Adams Strunk is getting kudos, if you will, for stepping back and letting the football people handle football? Sure. Look, these things go up and down. In 2016, is it? They're coming off 2015, right? When they last won 3 games. They were 3-13 in a 16-game schedule. None of us thought Rustin Webster and Mike Mularkey were the people equipped to turn that around, and they got them to 9-7. A year later, Webster was out and Robinson in as they were 9-7 and in the playoffs. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic turnaround. 3 wins to 9 wins, and then a year later into the playoffs. If they do something like that, everybody will get credit for it. Yeah, Brandon, I'm not going to run you through the questions. Brandon says, did the Brinker-only press conference have more pointed questions than the Borgonzi one? If so, what were they? Well, I mean, you're hearing the answers to them. You can imagine what the questions were, but I'm not going to sit and read you a transcript of it, which only really has bullet points from it. I asked him why he didn't want to be the top executive on the football side when it was there for the taking, and he said, he was trained. I don't know why he didn't give this answer when I asked him the day Rand was fired. He said he was trained by Russ Ball in the Green Bay front office for 5 years about everything it takes to run a football team. And that's kind of what he aspired to do, which wasn't made clear. He was asked why, he talked about Rand leading a team that only won 3 games. And he was asked why he was still around when he helped run a team that only won 3 games. Do I think there will be change at offensive coordinator, maybe someone with experience versus the current OC never calling plays, or Callie? I don't know. I think Nick Holtz is pretty high on the list of guys I could see going. And he's pretty high on the list I could see of Callahan really making a case to keep. But they hired Brian Callahan because of their faith in his ability to call plays and run the offense. So to immediately look for scenarios where they could take play calling away from him is not solving the problem. And somebody that's going to be in that position would be calling Brian Callahan's plays, that he is the leader in designing and putting together in a playbook. It's not a huge problem solving situation. Sam says J-Rob handled everything well until he didn't. He was the stable force until he made too many mistakes. Hopefully Chad is the right guy. I don't know about Chad's ego, but certainly he doesn't put off the air that J-Rob did, particularly once J-Rob had some success. Now, we haven't seen Chad with some success. Look, there are a lot of owners who are panic, but I mean, compared to a Robert Kraft or a Rooney family or the top owners in the sport, you wouldn't mention Amy Adams Strunk with them at all. Interested Curveballs said on their draft comments. So let's get to that. I think this is the master plan comment from Chad Brinker. It's a little long, but it's worth getting into. We're going to look at all avenues as far as that number one pick. I mean, you can't pass up on a generational talent. We won't do that. But we've also got to look at the options available to us there as well, because we want to build this team for the long term. And I just know I mentioned this before. I mean, if I can map this out perfectly, I mean, I would love to have 30 picks over the next 3 years, and 12 of those picks come from the top 100. I mean, that would be ideal. That's how you flip your roster, and that's how you get youth on your roster. And then let's be selective in free agency and try to find some of the right veterans to balance this roster out and to be able to show these young guys how to be pros. But it doesn't always work that way. You don't always get the generational talent at quarterback right off the bat, like Washington seems like they've been able to do, to flip their team pretty quickly when you do that. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try. Now, I wrote about the numbers that the Titans have right now with this 30 desire for 30 picks over the next 3 years, with 12 in the top 100. Right now, they've got 23 picks over the next 3 years with 8 in the top 100. Well, the only way you get those picks, the 7 additional picks with 4 more of them in the top 100, is trade down or trade Simmons or trade Ridley, guys that would bring you back picks that are that high. I love the idea of having that many picks. But, that's going to take time and strategy. And Borgonzi said that he wants to trade down, welcomes the discipline that it would take to make those trades, and but wants to trade down. Skip over to a different topic here. Who's in charge of hiring Mike Heath's replacement, Burke Nihill? I mean, he playfully said he got calls already. Do I believe they trade out? Eddie's asking, with that desire for 12 top 100 draft picks. If there's not a generational talent there, and I think that makes sense. You take a generational talent if you've got a generational talent available to you. If you don't, you trade out to try to hit these benchmark numbers that they want. CA says they needed Adam Peters when they got Rand Carthon. Adam Peters wisely said no and backed out of an interview with the Titans and went and got himself in an incredibly good situation in Washington, where he's in position to draft Jaden Daniels, and he's in an NFC Championship game as a rookie. Yeah, I mean, you can't say, as Rob says, the Titans franchise is the epitome of dysfunctional. That being said, what has happened in Jacksonville this offseason has been crazy. Well, you can't be the epitome of dysfunctional if somebody's more dysfunctional than you are. So Jacksonville is more dysfunctional than the Titans are, I would argue, waiting until January 22nd to fire their general manager, who's making it impossible for them to hire a head coach. I mean, the Titans have a lot of problems, but they didn't have that problem. They got a guy who looks like he would have been a top candidate to be general manager, who came in despite what looks like a little bit of a wacky structure and an odd owner who's not unstable. Everybody says the AJ Brown trade was the downfall, and I think it's wrong to just skip past Isaiah Wilson as a first round draft pick. This guy played 4 snaps in the league for the Titans. That to me was the beginning of the downfall. I mean, the right tackle problem has been going on forever. That was before Brown, right? Adam asks if I think there's a possibility of trading back and still getting Cam Ward. I doubt it. It's very early. My understanding of Colt Anderson's future is that it's pretty much in John Fossil's hands. So he'll basically interview for a lesser position. Ed Henry, I don't know about this. Since after this presser, if they can, they would like to move some of the free agent acquisitions from last year. Look, for every guy they move, they have to replace him. So, first off, some of those guys were 1 year. But if you move Kenneth Murray, first off, what kind of market is there for Kenneth Murray at $7 million a year? And then you have to replace Kenneth Murray. Lloyd Cushenberry's hurt. You couldn't move Lloyd Cushenberry without having to get a center. And Lloyd Cushenberry, I think in year 2 under Bill Callahan would stand to be a pretty good center. Ridley, maybe, but then you need to find another number 2 receiver, and they don't have many receivers under contract. So who else are we talking about there, Ed? Tony Pollard, then you'd need another number 1 running back. So I think, personally, that my suspicion is they'd go maybe one big fish, maybe Trey Smith, but certainly not a T. Higgins type. And then more guys like Sebastian Joseph Day, who is cheap and who, filled a role well, and Borgonzi didn't name a lot of names, but he did name, is it Mike DeVito and Anthony Fasano, 2 guys that joined the Chiefs when they went from 2-12 to 11-5, 2-14, 2-14, I think, to 11-5 from 2012 to 2013 as the kind of guys you want to bring into a locker room. And I know Fasano personally, he came here and played for the Titans for a couple of years. He's a great locker room guy, really good locker room guy, and a solid player. You also have to get reasonable offers for these people. So Ed's saying after this presser, I wouldn't be surprised if they moved some of the free agents from last year if possible, but you have to get value. Yeah. And Robert, the Anthony Fasano was the same guy that was here for 2 years. So he was in Kansas City for those 2 years, and then he was here for 2 years after that. Trying to think back over the years, Todd Apple said, but was ran the least vocal, accessible GM we've ever had. I mean, Mike Reinfeldt was no prize talker by any means, but I think he tried. He wasn't a good communicator and wasn't particularly articulate. And Rustin Webster wasn't either. But they certainly made more of an effort than Rand Carthon did. Yeah, Austin Huff. I mean, the reasoning for no video and audio has been hashed out like 10 times. If you're just getting caught up, you can go back and catch up. Borgonzi is smart taking this job, Daryl says, because of Amy's habit of looking for scapegoats when things go wrong and firing J-Rob, Vrabel, and Carthon. So if 2025 is bad, Borgonzi could get a big promotion. Yeah, all indications are she's going to be more patient now. Everybody with the Titans believes that. And she's backed off football making decisions. So it would be Brinker making those decisions. But, J-Rob, I thought it was a year early. He didn't deserve to be fired during the season. But, his track record had gone south. It's not like he was a short timer. 5 years? No, 6 or 7 years. Vrabel was 6 years. They're not scapegoated. Their records got poor. I disagree with the timing of their firing, but Carthon's the guy who had short term, and Carthon was a mistake to hire. So, yeah, but she's firing too many people. I don't think Vrabel should have been fired. I don't think Carthon should have been hired. Two assistant GMs, unknown. Highsmith in the front office. I'm not sure what his title is. He's staying, certainly. Brinker stuck with him. But I think they'll hire at least one assistant GM. I think two might be a little heavy. Yeah, I didn't see anything great out of the tight ends this year. Now, that's a talent thing, but I don't think Jason Outen is going to make or break this coaching staff. After the draft, would I expect scouting staff changes? The Titans are way overdue to change the scouting staff, some of it at least. No, Ed, this scouting grading system is a Green Bay thing. Andy Reid touched on it in Green Bay. John Dorsey had it in Green Bay, and that's where its origin is. All right, let me talk to you about Zen Sports. Zen Sports, great sponsor of this podcast, and they've got a great thing going on. So here's what's going on at Zen Sports, where you could use TN Paul to sign up. They've got this VIP Players Club sweepstakes. So the grand prize winner, I'm having trouble speaking now, the grand prize winner gets $10,000 bonus bet on the NFL's big game, plus $10,000 cash, or if you prefer, $15,000 cash. It's a pretty sweet deal. And there are 5 small prize winners that get a $1,000 bonus bet on the NFL big game, or $250 cash. You earn entries with each and every bet you place on the Zen Sports app. So go to Zen Sports, sign up using code TNPaul, and you make some bets and you get entries into these sweepstakes where you could win outrageous money to bet or cash money. Head to zensports.com/sweepstakes and get the full rules. Zen Sports, I don't think anybody else is doing this, where you've got potential win up to $15,000 in cash, not just bets, but cash, or $250 for 5 people who win a smaller prize. Zensports.com/sweepstakes. Check it out. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 and over and in Tennessee to bet. See a lot of you in here. Feel free to retweet. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or iHeart later on, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. I appreciate it very much. If you're watching on Twitter, you can like it there too. And on YouTube, also give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and do all that fancy stuff. It benefits absolutely everyone. You should also be a subscriber to paulkuharsky.com, $7.50 a month. Great insight and analysis all year round. Well worth the cost of engagement. Here is the Borgonzi on quarterbacks. You have to have the physical arm talent, obviously, to make every throw in the league. Accuracy, decision-making are big parts of it. The way you process coverages, the game's changed a little bit too. So having mobility, not just a pocket passer. And of course, the leadership part is big. They're the face of the franchise. They're your leader. They're the ones that are going to stand in front of the team every day, and they're going to follow him. It's a pretty succinct description of what virtually every team that doesn't have one of those guys wants in the guy that they find. Is that Shedeur Sanders? Is that Cam Ward? Is that temporarily a Derek Carr, a Kirk Cousins? One of these other guys who flamed out somewhere, sat on the bench for a year, could come here and be a bridge while the Titans gather up their draft resources and build a better team while they wait on better quarterback options a year from now. We shall see. But I think you got to like the description that he gives of the 3-win team he inherited and why. Here's another thing that was a little bit concerning from the Amy Adams Strunk angle. This is shifting, back to Brinker. What was Amy Adams Strunk's reasoning for wanting him in this position? I don't know if she said a reason, he said. I mean, I think she maybe over the last couple of years, maybe a better question for Burke or somebody, but I mean, she understands this draft and develop system. She sees the elite franchises of the league. Like, how can we become that? Well, this is how you do it if you want to be the Steelers or the Packers or the Ravens. And that's what they do. They have their core beliefs and what they believe, and they build their team a certain way. They have their principles that they live by. I've talked about this before. You've got to have a vision, process, and discipline. That's the elite franchises of this league. They have a vision. They know where they're going. They know how to get there as a plan and the process. And you have to have the discipline to execute that. And I mean, she's asked me to implement that for this organization, and that's what we're trying to do. Most striking of that, I don't know if she said a reason. This is a reason that you'd like to hear from her. What is her rationale? I mean, I think Chad Brinker could be an interesting guy to do this, but you'd like to hear from the owner why she thinks he's the guy to do this. And I don't know that we've ever heard from her about Chad Brinker specifically, the way you get a comment about Rand Carthon when he was hired to be the GM, or the way you hear about Mike Borgonzi when he becomes the GM. Let's go to the newest comments here. Kane asks if there are any quarterbacks I like that we could go after in rounds 2 through 7. I don't really believe in a 2nd to 7th round quarterback. They're generally long shots. Hell, 1st round quarterbacks are generally long shots. But you either go or, I don't have a lot of faith in that route. Richard says he's been listening to Nashville media fairly heavily the last 3 weeks. Guess he'll subscribe to my site. I'm a little gruff, but at least I'm honest. He's an out-of-state guy. I'm an out-of-state guy too, though. I've been in state since 1997. This market needs a little gruff, Richard. Needs a little gruff. You've been listening to Nashville media fairly heavily the last 3 weeks. You've heard a lot of cheerleading. You heard that interview with Rand Carthon. You don't want that. You want this. Thanks. Welcome. I look forward to having you. Cody, I did increase prices. I've been doing this for 7 years. And I don't know that you could tell me what in today's world has stayed the same price for 7 years. I give you a really good value for what you got. And I went from $5.99 to $7.50, which I don't think is Haven't had many complaints about that. So I'm upfront about it. I'm not hiding it. And I increased them before the season started. So I'm sorry you got the news late. Ed says, can I make an argument that this structure is as good as when Underwood was in Brinker's role? Underwood was great, but wouldn't you want a football guy than a lawyer? Well, Underwood's not in Brinker's role. Underwood is in Nihil's role. Nihil is in Underwood's role. Underwood wasn't always great, but Underwood was Bud's person who managed the franchise. That's now Burke Nihil, not Brinker. Brinker's a spinoff who's doing that same thing over the football side. It's not a fair comparison. I don't like either of the quarterbacks. I think if Sebastian Joseph Day, Andrew's asking, what are the chances they re-sign Sebastian Joseph Day? And I would think his price would be about the same as his price has been. And if it is, I think they'd probably like to re-sign him if Denard is running the defense and the Titans are the same. Who would I draft first overall? I would try like hell to get out of that pick. If I was stuck there, I'd probably draft Travis Hunter. Typically, ex-Chiefs coaches and GMs have not fared well without Andy Reid, much like ex-Pats without Tom Brady. How will Borgonzi be different? Not everyone's the same. There have been a load of expatriates, and I'd say, they were without both Belichick and Tom Brady. How many ex-Chiefs have there been? John Dorsey, but how many others? And you're talking about GM. A GM minus the coach is different than a coach, assistant coach minus the coach or minus the quarterback. I mean, of course, Mike is coming here. He's leaving the best team in the league and coming to the team that was just worst in the league. There's a big disparity. It's going to take time if he can pull it off. Isn't it best to sell players they draft and develop that once they perform, they get paid? Isn't that what it's all about? No. I mean, that's maybe a baseball strategy for the Tampa Bay Rays. You have to pay somebody in the league. You have to meet the salary cap. So you don't want a team of all players on their first contract. You need some guys on the second contract, and you need a mix. Ideally, you want a quarterback on his second contract. Everybody talks about how great it is and what a window you have with a young quarterback who's on his first contract. But I don't think you can name me a team that's won a Super Bowl with a quarterback on his first contract. It does allow you a lot of flexibility to spend big dollars on other positions. But if you develop a guy, you would like to retain him and have some guys who have 10-year careers with you. And part of the Titans' big problem is that they have not had nearly enough of those guys. You can't have everyone. Then what happens is you can't afford to keep some of them. And so some of them you let go. And then what happens is you don't sell them. You get compensatory picks for them. And so if you're getting 2 extra thirds every year, like Baltimore is, that really helps you get these kind of picks that Brinker's talking about, where you get 30 picks over the course of 3 years, and that helps sustain your franchise. That's a significant way to sustain your franchise, to keep things going, to keep bringing people in, to hit more often, because your batting average is only going to be so good no matter how good a drafting team you are. You have a good batting average. You re-sign the best guys at the most valuable positions. You begrudgingly, hopefully, say goodbye to some other guys, and you get compensatory picks in exchange for them, which helps you replenish, and on you go on that cycle. Rustin was not part of the 9 and 7. J-Rob was hired and told by Amy he had to have Malarkey, which Malarkey confirmed years later, saying Rooney was a sham, and J-Rob asked him why. They did interviews. Rustin Webster, what was his last year? Brian, we're looking for one moment. You're naming two guys. We're looking for one moment that was the beginning of the downfall. And you're saying it's Farley and Wilson, and that's not one moment. That's two moments. And now we're going to list everybody. Jabari's coming in with Kevin Dodd and Vic Beasley. I mean, Kevin Dodd's a second-round miss in a year where they also hit, right? So that was a bad miss, but that's a miss. Now we're just going to rattle off every J-Rob miss. Not every one of them is the moment that started the team on the downfall. Now, you're welcome to your opinion, but I think it's hard. You're hard pressed to say that it wasn't AJ Brown or Isaiah Wilson. And I think Isaiah Wilson was earlier. And so if you're looking at the beginning of the unraveling, I would say it's Isaiah Wilson. Yeah, I think generational in this draft is probably only Hunter. Sam is asking who screams generational to you in this draft. And this is the typical Titans thing. Like they've got the first pick in a draft that lacks generational talent. So that's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't. Brian saying over the cap said last year's spending spree canceled out a fifth round compensatory picks plus Snead. See you ran. It was impossible for anybody. The Titans needed bodies, and they had money to get talented bodies. I don't begrudge their plan. You can't just say like at the snap of a finger, okay, we're going the compensatory pick route when you don't have draft picks coming in. You have to get the draft picks in and develop them before you can get to the compensatory picks route. You can't just get there automatically. What could you get for Simmons? Second and a fourth? Second and a fourth, maybe? That's a good question, Heath. Heath says, when Mike discussed character, I was expecting some of the character picks the Chiefs made, like Tyreek Hill or Hunt. You know, he didn't have final say there. But yeah, I mean, they get a free pass on some of that. Do I think it's going to work this time? I'm a skeptic on everything. I've announced that. I'll believe things are going to work when I see them start to work. Yes, Heath, I have a transcript of the Brinker only presser. The press have a transcript of the presser. J-Rob did manage to convince Amy to force Malarkey out after winning a playoff game. She must be susceptible to whoever's in charge and acquiesce when things are bad, I guess. She does seem to have that power. Ken Dorsey's grading system is the familiar language here. He got it from the Packers. Andy Reid was with the Packers early in his career. And Brinker has it from the Packers, and Borgonzi has it. So that's going to be the grading system that they use. John Salgi, the director of college scouting, is familiar with it. The scouting team is going to have to learn it. And that's what the Titans are going to use going forward. Borgonzi also, his makeup sounds a little bit like Vrabel. And I'll finish with that in just a minute after I tell you about Edley's BBQ, which is just the best barbecue place to eat. You got to go to edleysbbq.com. You find the location nearest you. Boom. Go there for lunch tomorrow. Franklin in Berry Farms is at 501 Sarah Avalon Berry Lane in Franklin. It's on Paytonsville Road, pretty much. That's my home base. There's another one in Franklin at the factory. 5 Points in East Nashville, where you can ask for Leon, the great bartender, makes a mean margarita. That's at 10:04. Sylvan Park, Donaldson, Gallatin, 12 South, Nolansville. They've got these fried ribs that, listen, everything on the menu is fantastic. But if you have a chance at these fried ribs, they're otherworldly. Service is great. Prices are very reasonable. Locations, you can't go wrong. I just gave you one that's somewhere near where you are right now. The mission of the place is fantastic. Will Newman is a tremendous citizen of our community. All the workers I've met, fantastic people. You will not leave hungry. They've got this like butter bar I eat for dessert that's outstanding. I can't recommend Edley's enough. Every time I mention them, the rail here with the questions and comments fills up with people telling me how much they love Edley's. Trust all of us. If you're not a regular, you need to check it out. If you are a regular, hey, if you haven't been there recently, you're overdue for a trip to Edley's. Check it out. Proud sponsor of the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm so pleased to be associated with them. Check it out. Here's Borgonzi sounding a lot like Mike Vrabel. We want a big physical team in the trenches that is fast and violent on the football field. We want players that love the game of football, that are smart, that are tough, that are dependable, and they believe in unity. Make no mistake about it, the most important people in our building are the players. We're here to help support and develop them on and off the field to maximize their abilities in order for us to win at a high level in this league. And this will take the efforts of the entire organization. A lot of that sounds like Mike Vrabel. And I was a fan of Mike Vrabel. I thought Mike Vrabel had the right stuff. I think the grading systems, Richard's asking how much they vary. I think they vary a reasonable deal. But that's something I could look into. Sam says, let them know I need a Edley's out in California. Well, we are getting your burger joint in and out, so it's only fair. I've had Texas barbecue, and I like Texas barbecue. Edley's is Tennessee barbecue, and I think it stacks up just great. I don't think, this is overstating my role, CA, that you think Amy's hiding from tough questions from me. There are times where I'm the only tough questioner, but a conversation with her would not be one of them. Thank me for the work I do. I appreciate it. The organization that you've been a fan of since '92 needs it. Couple more and we'll get out of here. Who's most likely to trade up? Desperate quarterback teams. Browns really need a quarterback. That was the case before Deshaun Watson retore his Achilles. They're done with Deshaun Watson. He can't play. Giants need a quarterback. Sam, mention that in our chat or send me a text and I'll put that down on my list to look into the grading system stuff. Does the lack of transparency just irk me? Well, generally the lack of transparency irks me. I hope today is a move. I hope Brinker in power. I hope Mike's hiring lead to more transparency. And I hope that, Callahan's fantastic in that regard. So I look forward to more from him. And I think Amy empowering these people should encourage them to use it. Yeah, you have to meet a minimal floor using the salary cap. It's not a problem for anybody. Drake says hello. Drake Martin. I'm glad you're watching, Drake. Make sure your dad is a member. Sam, I'm going to go ahead and let people praise me for a minute. Sam says PK is far and away the best guy in the beat and has been for decades. Jeff Diamond's such ancient history. People don't even know who that is. Netflix's price, somebody points out, has gone up time and time again. I've done it just once. And now we're back to questions I've already looked at. J-Rob, 9-7 in his first season, 2016 as GM. So I may have been wrong about Rustin Webster. That's all we got. Really great crowd in here. I appreciate it. Please eat at EDLEY'S, bet at Zen Sports, subscribe to paulkuharsky.com. I look forward to going to my email and seeing a bunch of new subscriptions. I will broadcast once again this week. I probably won't do my usual Thursday slot, and we'll substitute a Friday slot for that instead. Try to get some work done tomorrow, and we'll take it from there. I will retweet what I wrote today, and you should definitely read it. Don't block the box, and be sure to lock your locks. Thanks for coming, everybody. I enjoyed it. Cheers.